we're so used to the Western way of thinking, which is very mind dominated,
Mm-hmm.
very thinking dominated, very we have to do things and we have to achieve things and we have to stress ourselves into manifesting or achieving so many things that society imposes that we should have or achieve. And then when we get sick, we go to the doctor, they give us a pill, and then we keep going and we keep going without even ever taking a breath and thinking, like, why am I feeling like this?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I getting sick? Well, now you go to the other side of the world and you might speak to some, monks in the mountains or, some people more into the Eastern tradition, and they just don't understand. You
Yeah.
might go to the rainforest, in the Amazon, and you talk to people. They're like, why would you just work 12 hours a day for what? Oh, for a house and a bigger house and then a bigger house and then a bigger car and another car. Like, why would you do that? Why
Mm-hmm.
would you take medicine when you feel sick? Why don't you just take some time to relax and see what's happening and like have some alternative medicine before you get into those pills and drugs and so on.
Yeah.
But here it's like it's how it works. I remember I was a kid. I felt a bit sick. I would always get a pill,
Mm-hmm.
and then you grow up. You get a mild headache, you get a pill. They're cheap. They're in handy, and that's how we're programmed to work and to
Yeah.
function in the world. Barely function, I would say.
Hi,
Okay.
Tiberius. Welcome to
Hey, Sophia.
Ideology. Welcome to Ideology Podcast.
What's going on, Ideology Podcast family?
You know what? I am so, so, so happy to have you on. I joined you for Magnetic Mondays. I follow you on Instagram, and honestly, your space is the most like uplifting. Every time I see a post from your page, it makes my day.
Oh wow, I'm grateful to hear that, and yeah, sometimes I meet people randomly, from time to time someone knows me, and like, hey, you're the guy with that Law of Attraction Live page. But there's a team behind the page, and we have a beautiful team and collaborators, and they, do their best to find the most inspirational piece of content they can post. And what's interesting is that I see a lot of people saying, hey, you know what? 3 weeks ago, I saw a post from your page, and it just helped me get through the day. And I don't think the vibe of the day is going to change someone's life. But I do think it can give you the 5% extra boost of inspiration, confidence, maybe a reminder that can help you make a decision or take an action or just remember something great about yourself because there's just so much good stuff inside of us. We just forget sometimes the busy Western life.
Yeah. So we want to know a little bit about Tiberius. So can you tell us more about yourself?
Yeah, well, I'm originally from Romania. I grew up post-communism. It was an interesting childhood with good and bad, of course. When I was 19, I moved from a small town in Romania to the capital of Romania, to Bucharest, and I got a job in video production. And my boss introduced me to the movie The Secret.
Mm-hmm.
I saw the movie The Secret, and it's the movie that talks about the law of attraction and how our thoughts have power and how if we think and if we visualize, we can manifest different things. And yeah, I just got really, really. I think The Secret found me basically. I just fell in love with this concept, and I was struggling back then. And I just said to myself, I'm like, if this thing works, wow, I have a shot to have a different life, a great life. And I just decided to really give it my very best. And everything that we have right now just kind of like sprung out of those first intentions and visualizing. One of my first big goals was to organize an event in Europe, in Romania, with Bob Proctor from the movie The Secret.
Mm-hmm.
Bob is my mentor. He passed away this year at 88. He just kept doing his thing until pretty much the last moment. And yeah, that was my first big thing, organizing an event with Bob Proctor in Europe. Which, when you're 19 and you have no money, no business experience, you have no idea how the industry works, might seem like something impossible, from with a speaker from the United States. Then Bob liked me a lot. He kind of like mentored me, and then I ended up working in the U.S. for him for his company for Procter Gallagher Institute. This goes back in 2011, and I do remember working in his team, his coaching team, and we would work with 8 to 10 new people every day, which was very fulfilling for me, but also a bit exhausting because my goal was always to reach and inspire many people.
Hmm.
And then I was working with 8 to 10 people a day. I was like, I cannot reach 1 million people by doing this strategy. It just doesn't work. I'm not going to live 1,000 years, not able to do that one on one.
Hmm.
So I was just thinking, I said to myself, I think social media is going to come to the point where there's going to be groups and pages and people are going to come together and, share different ideas or connect on different subjects. This goes back to 2011.
Yeah.
And yeah, we started with some Facebook pages and then we started with some Instagram pages. And that's pretty much in a nutshell a bit of my story. Of course, there's a lot more.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'm traveling the world. Now I'm in Athens, in Greece. I spent my past year in Greece studying ancient Greek philosophy because I want to see what the connections are between how the people in ancient Greek thought, some of the greatest minds of ancient Greek, and I want to see what the connections are with modern day self-help and manifesting. So I spent
Hmm.
my last year in Greece. Then I went to Bali for 3 months when we started chatting, and now I'm back in Greece for 2 weeks. We're gonna do some filming here, and then I'm gonna go back to Bali, Indonesia for a while.
And what are you
Yeah.
finding on your travels? Are you seeing a thread running through these different ancient wisdoms and how they've come to be in our lives?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there's evidence of you go to the ancient Stoics, to the ancient Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. He said a person is what he thinks about most of the time. You go to ancient Greek, you find Plato who had the theory of forms, who said that perfect things exist in our imagination, and then we kind of like make replicas in our manifested reality. Or you go to Eastern philosophy, Buddha says that we become what we think about. So there are clues, there are connections, there are different ways people interpreted, how should I say, our potential.
Hmm.
For example, in philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, Socrates, they put a lot of emphasis on developing our reasoning factor, our mind, our thinking ability. They say this is the highest form that we're capable of developing because they said that everything else, you can find in animals, you can find in the animal kingdom,
Hmm.
and they say that our ability to reason is the highest capable function of the soul.
Yeah.
You go to the eastern side, Eastern philosophy, and like Hinduism and Buddhism. They're more proponents of meditation, and they're more proponents of connecting with the body, and they're more proponents of tapping into the wisdom that's already here versus working more on the intellectual side. But I think both parts are important. I think it's a matter of balance and
Right.
different approaches. Yeah, to the same
Right.
thing.
That's really interesting. For me, I assumed everybody saw the world the same when I was young because
Mm,
I'm originally Muslim, but we grew up with the Sufi culture that said
mm,
mind, body, and soul, that you are a whole person and you need the wisdom from the body as well as the mind, and the spirit is something that you're supposed to develop your whole life, and it can get, it's infinitely possible to develop your soul, and there are rituals and things that you're supposed to do. And so when I was growing up, that was always the emphasis. I grew up studying philosophers like Al-Ghazali. There's a lot of Western thinking that is very much separates the mind and the body. And I honestly still sometimes struggle to believe that there are people who view the world this way, like even medicine that treats the body, but it
yeah.
doesn't treat the whole individual.
Oh yeah. It's just it's a culture. It's a way of thinking. It's we're so used to well, in my case, like, or maybe in your case as well, we're so used to the Western way of thinking, which is very mind dominated,
Mm-hmm.
very thinking dominated, very. We have to do things, and we have to achieve things, and we have to stress ourselves into manifesting or achieving so many things that society imposes that we should have or achieve. And then when we get sick, we go to the doctor, they give us a pill, and then we keep going and we keep going without even ever taking a breath and thinking, like, why am I feeling like this?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I getting sick? Well, now you go to the other side of the world, and you might speak to some, monks in the mountains, or, some people more into the Eastern tradition, and they just don't understand. You
Yeah.
might go to the rainforest, in the Amazon, and you talk to people that's like, why would you just work 12 hours a day for what? Oh, for a house and a bigger house and then a bigger house and then a bigger car and another car. But why would you do that? Why
Mm-hmm.
would you take medicine when you feel sick? Why don't you just take some time to relax and see what's happening, and have some alternative medicine before you get into those pills and drugs and so on.
Yeah.
But here it's like it's how it works. I remember I was a kid. I felt a bit sick. I would always get a pill,
Mm-hmm.
and then you grow up. You get a mild headache, you get a pill. They're cheap. They're in handy, and that's how we're programmed to work and to
Yeah.
function in the world. Barely function, I would say.
See, I grew up with a very religious family, so you got the pill, but you got prayers with it. And
That's good.
you were told this pill is only gonna work if you believe it's going to work, and there's a prayer part to this that makes it all function together, because the prayer makes you believe. So
Yeah.
I think it was important way always of making you realize this thing that you're looking for, this money, think about what the spirit is. Why do
Mm.
you want it? What is the outcome?
I love how you said, here's a pill, but also here's a prayer. In my culture, in my country, it wasn't like this. It was just like, here's a pill. And I do believe that 40 years of communism before that just destroyed a lot of spirituality in my country, because the religion was pretty much banned during
Mm-hmm.
communism. They didn't take down the churches and so on, but you weren't really allowed to go and have open ceremonies and so on. So everyone would do their own little thing in silence, and a lot of the spirit went out. And I think when a culture just loses spirituality, or even a certain faith in something, I think people suffer at the end of the day, because you just feel, purposeless. And if you combine that to systems where the leadership, the political, parties, the government is not well established, at the end of the day, the people are just confused because they just don't know what to believe in. And hopefully they find belief in something that they want and in themselves. And I think it's easier nowadays with social media, with everything. Before that, it was just very difficult. You just didn't have access to information.
Yeah. Well, you're such a good person then to talk to, because where you started off where some people are, and you can be a bridge, because it's something that I struggle with, because I always feel like if I'm talking to someone about spirituality and they are at zero level, where they haven't even been exposed to their church, they haven't even had any idea of Christianity, or what they have had is negative. It's really hard to talk to people about that. But to me, you're suggesting that actually you can go from a country where, for your generation, you had no access to anything spiritual, right?
Yeah.
And so then from there, how did you develop a muscle for this? Because now you're almost someone who always works to improve that aspect of your life.
Well, I got it through, I would say, through some suffering. When I was in the seventh grade, I had a very bad infection. I had a near-death experience that introduced me more to, let's say, my higher self. Um, when we have like in our intestine we have like an appendix, right? And sometimes you gotta go and get appendix surgery, otherwise it can burst inside of you, and when it bursts, you can get into trouble.
Yes.
Now, usually when the appendix bursts inside of you, you have to go to the hospital in a few hours, otherwise you risk dying, right? Some people even die. Well, I stayed with that infection for 3 days, and I had a moment, let's say in the middle of the 3 days, where because of so much pain and so much, fever and so on, I just felt like out of all that pain, I just had this spiritual experience where I felt no pain, I felt peace, I felt a lot of positive things, and I just felt I spoke with this entity, and I had a choice to stay or to go back, and I ended up staying 1.5 months in the hospital, believe it or not. 2 weeks in the ER room, 2 weeks in a special section for my thing, and then 2 weeks on the like normal salons. And we're talking about communist hospitals in Romania, like really bad. The reason I say for 3 days was that like it wasn't a competent doctor to perform surgery on me in my small town. But anyway, in the seventh grade, I just left the hospital after a month and a half, and I was just a different person, if you can imagine.
Oh.
And I just started feeling things differently and seeing things differently. Before the seventh grade, I was always a bit of a debater. I loved mythology. I would go and read. I actually loved religion.
Mhm.
They started inserting religion in school after communism, and I was a very rational person. I just tried to make sense of everything that was taught to me, and I didn't have teachers to explain things. To just no, you have to take it as it is, and you have to believe it. Otherwise, it's sin.
Mm-mm.
And everything was like you just take it and accept it. I'm like, yeah, but like let's talk a bit about it. I wanna understand more. The more I understand, the better I can connect with something. So after the seventh grade, I was a bit like, hey, my left brain was still there, introspective and scientific, and I want to see the facts. But then I had this whole part of myself that was like, I had a profound spiritual experience that many people probably never get to have. And I'm like, what happened? And I didn't have anyone to talk to. And in a way, I started like figuring out things by myself. Um, as I could. But it was just a different way of seeing things. But if I would talk to people about spirituality, people that have no revelation in that sense, I would just start asking them questions. Like where do they think everything comes from? Like how do they feel when they go walk in the sun? How do they feel when they pray? Like just just to get a sense of where people are. Inside, because I think spirituality is more of a feeling rather than an understanding of a concept. I think we are taught to understand spirituality on an intellectual level,
Yeah.
and I think that's the worst way to approach spirituality.
Yeah.
I think we should learn how to connect, how to feel, how to sense things, because we have that capacity, and not just try to understand or to how should I say put labels on things, because we do put labels on things. Oh,
Yes.
well, praying means getting like this and doing this and saying a few words and that's it. Well, yeah, that's a way to get into prayer, but prayer is actually your unique connection with your, the higher self, God, and however, whatever religion you're part of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Ideologies, because you have a podcast called Ideology Podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
The law of attraction concept is it has roots in spiritual books.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yes.
it didn't like the law of attraction concept. The law of attraction is a very spiritual concept. Manifesting is a very spiritual concept. It's about connecting to your higher self. It's about asking for what you want, praying for what you want, being grateful. A lot of spiritual components.
Yes.
And the people that started the whole, because there's like, maybe you heard about the New Thought movement.
Yes.
That can be called an ideology, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
It started from people who are ministers, preachers. It started from, I think, New Thought movement started from the 1800s with Phineas Quimby, and he was more of a faith healer,
Mm-hmm.
hypnotist, auto suggestions. He was playing it in that area. And then he just started, giving some clear ideas about thought power, mind power, the subconscious mind. Um, then there were a few other people like Thomas Troward in Scotland, Wallace D. Wattles, who wrote the book The Science of Getting Rich. That's the book that inspired Rhonda Byrne to create the movie and the book The Secret. For example, Wallace Wattles, he wrote a book called The Science of Getting Rich, but it doesn't have anything to do with money. The book, it's about understanding how wealthy we are in potential. And the guy, he was a minister, and he took the Bible and he said, "Hey, this is very hard to understand. People don't get it.
Mhm.
Let me make this book, The Science of Getting Rich." And then the people from the other ministers, they were like very upset. Like, how can you do this? He's like, no, the Bible is actually a book on prosperity, and it's a book of inspiring people, to be closer to God. And he
Yeah.
even said, look, Jesus said here, everyone has the power to be a God. Ye are gods. And yeah, he got a bit in trouble with the church.
Mhm.
And then there's Napoleon Hill, who was very popular with Think and Grow Rich, another book on
Yes.
where he talks a lot about mind power and the law of attraction and so on. And then a few other, of course, other people came up. And then Rhonda Byrne created the movie The Secret and the book The Secret. I think that impacted like over 300 million people. I mean, it's
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's how it became popular nowadays. But the truth, the essence of what's talked about in the law of attraction can be found in most religions, can be
Yeah.
found in a lot of the philosophers, and yeah,
But someone
because
like you have you in some ways it was grace that you were able to have this like spiritual side of you come in because the physical was hurting you so much, right? But
yeah,
let's say someone who's an academic, they're maybe 50, they've just been, acing their exams their whole life, they are very driven, but they now feel they've got into a place where they wonder what more, what more, they're
oh, yeah.
lacking fulfillment and purpose. How would you speak to someone who has zero idea of anything except how to use their mind through
Oh, yeah.
struggle to achieve?
Well, I would just suggest that I would tell them a few stories, and I would just suggest that they get out of their environment for a month, 2 months, 3 months, if possible. Make a radical shift in their environment. Maybe go to India to an ashram, for example. I live in Bali, in the center of Bali. It's called Ubud. There's a big spiritual community there. Just take yourself out of an environment that's very mind driven, and then go and meditate, do some yoga, do anything that doesn't have to do anything with the with the persistent thinking structure.
Yeah.
Go dance. Go do just things that are expressive, artistic. Use less of the mind, because when it's used less, it just goes back into its proper place. The mind is not designed to be used as we use it today. We use it in overdrive. We overclock it, like those computers which are like always overclocked, and that's when our body breaks down. The mind has some functions, but it's not designed to control everything and do everything. So getting out of that environment for a while might be healthy and might just show people that, hey, it's not only about the rational mind.
Yeah.
And then you feel different, and you feel new energies, and then you're like, oh, I had an experience. Oh, that's how it works. I have friends that are yoga teachers, meditation teachers, different forms of holistic arts, and they never had like a huge near death experience or whatever, something like terribly painful happened. They just started meditating, and after a while they're like, wow, now I feel I feel more than I used to.
Yeah. I
Maybe they
feel
can
more
learn.
content.
Yeah, and they feel the spiritual energy. It's an energy, you can feel it. It
Yeah.
might be a bit more difficult in the beginning, and it might be more difficult if all your life you've been in this mind dominated place where all of your rewards and all of your validation came from using your mind to get things, and then you find out that after a while that you don't know who you are and what your purposes, and then you use the mind to just you use the same tools to do the same thing, and that's a bit more tricky because we just don't know how many tools we have.
Right.
We just know a few things, and we think that's all.
Yeah. So it is, how important is it to have not just a community, but at least someone in your life who has this way of living? It's not something you can just come to by yourself, right? While you're in the midst of, high stress situations.
Well, I think it depends. I think there are people who enjoy more community things.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are people who are more solitary. I was even talking a few days ago with someone about our instinct of avoiding being alone or loneliness, And it's a deeply rooted instinct which goes back maybe thousands of years ago when we were all in tribes, If you would be cast out of your tribe, that would probably mean certain death, right? You get out, maybe an animal eats you, or it's hard to survive by yourself. So we have this instinct, and many times we avoid boredom or being alone, and then we just hang out with the wrong people just so we can avoid that pain that the instinct brings up. But then there's a lot of people who chose to be alone and who chose solitude, and they became some of the most amazing prophets of our past, right? In all religions, all the prophets, they were people who practiced solitude a lot, and they got a lot of their inspiration from solitude. So I really think that, I don't know, for someone who's just starting out, maybe go and do some yoga, maybe go and do some meditation, maybe just go and spend the day just by themselves without any phones, or, and just start observing what's happening inside and maybe take some notes. I started feeling anxious, I started feeling stressed, I started feeling like purposeless, whatever. And write down what's happening, and just trust yourself and take your time and choose to explore in time. I don't have a solution for people, I think the solution is to start trusting a deeper intelligence in us and to let that thing express. I do believe that there's a higher self that's always trying to express through us. But I also do believe that our minds are always like, oh, am I doing the right thing? What's the perfect way to do it? What's the fastest way to do it? How should I do it? Just let go of that and just trust yourself more, and let synchronicities come into your life, and let the universe bring to you some things that might be helpful, You can just set some intentions like, hey, I want to connect more with my spiritual self. And just meditate on that, and then write it down and see what comes up, what happens, because there's always a clue. There's always a first step we can take,
Yeah, I find for most people the things that block them is the emotion of fear. And I think I may have mentioned this before in one question I posed in your in Magnetic Mondays, but I find that a lot of people, from the time you're in school, you're told it's almost a civic duty to watch the news. And so but if you're watching the news, every single time there's one new crisis after another, and you're constantly programmed to be fearful. Yeah. So if you're in fear, then how you can't, I feel like fear is such an emotion that the only way to break out of it is to literally lean into prayer to let those feelings subside. But how do you deal with that emotion of fear?
Well, the answer is self-evident from what you said. Just let go, of outside influences so much. I think it's important to stay up to date with what's happening in the world, but I think you can just do that, 10 minutes a day or 30 minutes a day, get some headlines that are important, and catch yourself when you're trying to consume things that are not healthy.
Yes.
Because we're addicted to so many things. We're addicted to watching the news. We're addicted to watching gossip. We're addicted to social media, endless scrolling, and a lot of the anxiety and the fear just comes from so much information overload,
Yes.
We can make a list of all the things that are influencing us on a day-to-day basis. You can say, hey, what am I doing on a day-to-day basis? Well, maybe I'm watching the news for 1 hour. Maybe I'm scrolling on Instagram Facebook, Twitter for 2 hours, and then see, hey, 6 hours a day, I'm consuming things that are not conducive to my well-being. And maybe if I go outside from point A to point B, I have to be aware that I'm bombarded by maybe 1,000 ads that come into my subconscious mind without me having, the space to think what's coming in.
Mhm.
So I always tell people, make a list of the things that influence you on a day-to-day basis and see which of them really serve you, see which of them not, and then the ones that don't serve you, just let them go and replace them with some things that are actually nice and inspiring. Maybe watching the news gives me a feeling of certainty because I'm up to date with what's happening. So maybe gives me some anxiety, but at least I know what's happening.
Mhm.
Well, what are some other things that can give me a feeling of certainty that don't have all that negative impact? And then you can
Yeah.
decide, maybe it's good to stay up to date with markets, but maybe in a healthier way, maybe subscribe to some services that deliver the news, in a better way. Maybe I don't need to know about all the crime that's happening and all of that. Maybe I just need to know just a small segment just to stay up to date.
Mhm.
So there are ways. There are ways.
What do you
Um,
personally do to, let's say you're having a bad day, what do you personally do to shift that for yourself?
well, an important thing that I do in the morning is that I connect with my body.
Mhm.
There are many days when I wake up and I'm not feeling good. I don't know what happened. Maybe there was a bad dream. Maybe I don't know. Sometimes I don't remember what I dreamed of. But I can sense my body is not feeling well, and I'm like, well, what's happening? I can do a breathing exercise. I can connect a bit more. I can listen to see what's causing the fear, what's causing the anxiety. I'm with some good friends of mine. We're actually a team. We went just walking a few hours before in the morning. We went to the Acropolis here of Athens, and we walked and we did a little ritual from Tony Robbins. If you know Tony, it's called
Yeah,
Daily
yeah.
Magic. I think it's even on YouTube, and it's an extra. It's like a guided ritual where you for 4 minutes you walk and you breathe. And then for 4 minutes while you're walking, we do a gratitude exercise and then a visualizing exercise. And then you do like a celebration exercise. Like, hey, let's celebrate that it's a new day and we're alive and on this planet and there's a billion things to be grateful for. So that usually gets me centered and aligned. And if there's something that needs to be addressed, I can address that. But usually it's just like, little things that get stuck to us and we can just cast them out. Guided meditations are good. Uh, yeah, anything that rather than drinking coffee and Coca-Cola and smoking cigarettes, because many times that's what we do. And I
Yes.
used to do this when I was in high school.
Yeah.
Uh, we would get together, the guys, before school and just drink Coca-Cola and coffee and smoke cigarettes. And I think the need, well, apart from the social need, I think like when we wake up and we get stimulants, I think it might be a way for us to connect with ourselves. I'm gonna smoke a cigarette. Maybe it represents taking a conscious breath that I can take without smoking the cigarette. Um, I'm drinking the coffee. Maybe it's gonna give me the dopamine spike I need because I'm feeling like this shitty day, and like that's gonna give me the spike, the happy hormone, whatever. When actually I can get my dopamine spike by writing down maybe some intentions or doing a gratitude exercise, getting centered or doing breathing exercise, or get my need to connect with myself by taking a few deep breaths and not smoking cigarettes.
So you've touched a little on rituals that you do. Are there other rituals that you find so helpful for you?
Writing down
Yeah,
my
journaling.
intentions. Mostly writing down my intentions. I'm not good at journaling. I do write, but I don't journal personally. I think journaling is a great tool. I just don't do it. Um, I mean, I just live a very different life than most people, and I just intentionally created it. I do a lot of movement with my body, a lot of physical exercise, or I do a lot of dancing, different styles of dancing. Um, I found that when I dance, it's I just don't feel like eating anymore. I just don't feel like I just feel like so good and so centered. Um, Usually in Bali, between 6 to 8, 9 p.m. there's a certain dance class,
Mm-hmm.
different styles, and after I finish it, I just go and I sleep. That's it. You know. When I used to do gym in the evening, I used to go and eat and then sleep, but very hard. It took me a while to sleep.
Yeah.
So I think we should find out what are ways to engage more with our body and with our emotions and engage less with our mind. You know,
Yes.
uh, many things. Breath work, breathing exercises are great. Meditation is great. Physical activities are great. Dancing is amazing. I just encourage everyone to go into dance because it's just such a therapeutic way. Find something that you like, maybe a more Latino style dance, maybe it's street dance, maybe it's more freestyle dance. Just go and find something because I think we're designed to dance and to move our bodies. And I think so much energy gets unstuck when we move our body. I don't think there's a specific way of people to do things, and I don't think there's a certain way of people to live their life.
Mhm.
I just think we're very stuck. I think there's so much more going for us that we're aware of,
Yeah.
and I think we can find out real, simple, natural ways to get unstuck. Doesn't matter how much money you have or where you are. I think there's always space and there's always ways for us to connect with our intelligence. I think our natural state of being is oriented more towards happiness than stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that if we trust that that's our natural state of being and just, every day get some time, take half an hour to research and to learn more about oneself, in time we're going to have a great system and a great philosophy, a personal philosophy of life. I just think that's the most beautiful thing we can have. Yeah,
You think that we can develop our own personal philosophy?
absolutely. Yeah, and I think what works for me might not work for other people. I used to work with a lot of people one on one, and I found out that some people just cannot stay with their back straight and just meditate. Do a guided meditation. It was part of one of the programs we were suggesting to people. And people said, I just can't do it. I get more stressed when I do it. And I used to do it. It was amazing. And then I speak to the people in my teams. I know, well, they have to try harder. I'm like, I don't think meditation and trying harder has something.
Yeah, they don't go together.
I think meditation should be as zero rules possible in the beginning. So you can just get out of your mind a bit. But then I started doing the same type of meditation with people while they were walking, with their eyes open, engaging their peripheral vision. And there's people who can just visualize so well when they're walking or listening to some music, and that's a meditation for them.
Yeah.
Some people are better at standing up. Some people are better at laying down. Some people fall asleep in 1 minute if they lay down. Some people never fall asleep if they lay down unless they choose to. So, yeah, I don't think anyone has it figured out. I don't think there's one formula that works for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we should be mindful of that in this space of, self-help where everyone has the formula and everyone wants to teach the formula. And I don't think anyone has a formula. I think it's our...
we can share different...
Yeah, I think we should sample things and say, hey, I like this. This works. I just came back from Tony Robbins in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
His big event. I love Tony.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think everything that Tony teaches applies for me. I just have a different way of doing certain things because I've developed my own method. Mm-hmm. But I went to Tony and a bunch of other seminars, and I met a lot of amazing people, and I learned from them because I want to see what they have, and I want to see what I can learn from them and implement in my life, and maybe share some things with them that might help them.
Mm-hmm. But it's about that. I think with his seminars, you get so many different teachers, right? And you get so many people, and so I did one of his virtual stuff,
Uh-huh.
and again, he's been someone who's been around, I think, since I was like a baby. Like he's
Yeah, yeah.
been around forever. So there's always things there that you'll be able to take, and then some things, or it might even get repetitive. I find, like if you're listening to the same person, after a while the words become just hollow because you've not applied them and they didn't really inspire you in the same way. I was going to ask you, which books would you say have had the biggest impact spiritually for you?
Oh wow, yeah. I love Louise Hay.
Yes. Yeah.
Louise Hay. She passed away a few years ago. She has a book called "You Can Heal Your Life."
Hmm.
That was big for me. I listened to it so many times, tens of times probably. I love Eckhart Tolle.
Yes,
Eckhart
I
Tolle.
love him. Yeah.
I love listening to his voice, and I also like listening to Louise Hay's voice. They do their audiobooks in their own voices. I just think there's so much beautiful energy there. So Eckhart Tolle, I love A New Earth from Eckhart Tolle. And another person I really admire, really love is Michael Singer with The Surrender Experiment and Living Unfettered.
Mhm.
An amazing guy. And he has such an amazing story. I could just talk about him for hours. Yeah, what else? I think it's pretty much it.
Did you ever see, if you've seen it online, did you ever see the 10-part webcast that Oprah did with Eckhart Tolle on his A New Earth book?
I saw some things in the past, yeah, for sure.
You might have been too young, but that was, I think, one of the first spiritual live streaming. And I have to say, it was very natural for me to take Eckhart Tolle because, again, a lot of his stuff is very like Sufi. So when I heard him put it into just plain English, for me, it was definitely one of the most transformative books, The Power of Now and A New Earth. But he talks a lot about resistance. What do you think gives you resistance?
What gives me resistance? Oh wow. Well, I think it comes back to limiting beliefs. You know,
Mm-hmm.
something that says, "Well, I'm not ready," or "I'm not good enough," or maybe this would happen if things go wrong, like different fears. I think it comes back to fears.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and everyone has fears, even the people, the preachers and the best-selling authors and the business people. They all have fears,
Mm-hmm.
but how to manage a fear is the question. How do I manage?
Yeah.
That acronym FEAR is false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
Okay. But if there's a voice inside of me says, "Oh no, don't do it. You're not good enough." Well, do I have the presence to listen to what's actually happening, and then a tool to take that fear and say, "Hey, I'm not gonna follow you." And then how, for example, how Joseph talks about when you're feeling afraid or whatever, just break your state, put a smile on your face, and then take a small action towards something opposite to that fear.
Yes, challenge it.
Yeah, and demonstrate. Because confidence. There's a quote by I think Ralph Waldo Emerson. He says, "Do the thing, and you will get the energy to do the thing." I think our, let's say, negative self-image just cannot deal with action in the opposite direction. Because you're just showing yourself that you can do it.
Yes, take an action that proves what you're feeling. I know we have to race through quickly, so I'm going to ask you, what about the ego? What do you think of the ego? What is that for you, and how does it limit you?
Ego, I don't think much about the ego. I think the ego has its proper place in our psyche.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a side of our brain that has the job to keep us safe and keep us alive, and I think that's a huge job. And I don't think the ego is bad at all. I think it should be honored. I just don't think. I think it's more correlated to a part of our mind that we tend to overuse, and that's why it's hyperactive. I think if we just meditate more and breathe more and allow more, I think then, the ego just does what it has to do when it has to do. I don't think about it often. I'm friends with my ego. I
Yeah,
think I think
that's
our
a
egos
good one.
have a hard job to do, and yeah, I honor it.
It's what Eckhart says, you can't make it an enemy.
Oh no, no, yeah, no, and I don't think there are parts of us because we have just different voices in our heads, and I don't think any of those voices want what's bad for us.
Mm.
I think there's just a place in us that wants to express and wants to grow, and is just connected with our unlimited potential imagination. And then
Mhm.
there's another part of us who's like, hey, yeah, but we're still in this manifested physical form, so you have to be careful, and you have to be healthy, and you have to be safe, and avoid, people that might hurt you, and so on. So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with the ego. I definitely don't think we should turn it into an enemy because we're just going to create some bad vibes inside of us, and who wants that?
No.
And I just think everything falls in alignment when we honor different aspects of our mind. Let's honor our minds, let's honor our bodies, let's honor our spiritual side, and let's bring some balance. Whatever that means for us.
Yeah. So, how do you personally manifest what you want?
How I manifest what I want. Wow. Well, two things. I set a big vision of what I want,
Mhm.
something that I can visualize, and then I chunk it down into rituals, things I
Okay.
can do every day.
Yeah.
So I've been studying ancient Greek philosophy for over a year now. I have a mentor. I have a teacher, a philosophy teacher from the US. He's a university teacher. I remember having a small nervous breakdown coming to Athens and seeing how much stuff there is to study here. I'm like, oh my God, there's just so much stuff to study. I don't think I can do it because since 2009, I've been just studying so much in the, more modern day self help. And I just like, oh no, this is too much. And then I cut myself. I'm like, oh, cool. So what's my vision? Well, my vision is to make ancient Greek philosophers, let's say, trendy again, and bring some of that ancient knowledge more into modern day self help. Okay, that's my vision. Does it inspire me? Okay. Well, what would happen if I spend 30 minutes a day studying? And what would
Mm.
happen if I get someone to help me to filter through all because a lot of it is just like clutter.
Mhm.
And break it down to small things I can do every day
Mhm.
without too much anxiety, without too much fear. You know, stay connected to joy, stay connected to the happiness of doing what I do. Stay connected to the vision,
Mhm.
and yeah, it's pretty much for everything. I remember when I started learning trading and investing and so on. That's an important part of life. Same thing. What's my vision? What is my vision? Okay, well, what do I have to do every day? Small things every single day. With consistency, it's amazing. After a year, now I can open the Zoom call with my philosophy teacher. I can have a competent discussion on ancient Greek philosophy. And I'm like, I close the Zoom meeting. Wow, that's
It's
amazing,
really amazing. Yeah.
because a year ago I was like feeling frustrated and anxious about it, but I couldn't grasp everything if I would take like 1 week. I'm gonna get all the books in 1 week and overload myself with philosophy. That wouldn't that would just bring more anxiety. But like little things every single day, if you write 1 page a day, you're gonna have a whole book or two books in 1 year. It's 1 page a day.
Wow,
If
that's
you
so
write
true.
one verse, if you write one verse a day, some people ask me about, oh, I want to manifest money, whatever. Everyone wants fast, simple, now. Like it's like all the like Amazon. You buy now, Prime, Amazon Prime.
Yes.
You gotta give it the same. Well,
Deliver it
that's
today. Yeah.
that's not. If you look at nature, it doesn't work like that. Everything you try to force in nature, like gets everything that gets tempered with will die. So I ask people, well, think about money. We don't really know a lot of things about money because most of us come from a place where there's more negative programming and lies about money than truth, right? Now, like,
Mhm.
what if you spend half an hour a day for the next year reading some of the best books about money?
Mm.
Spiritual books about money, but also books from big entrepreneurs, from big investors, and so on. Simple books. What's going to happen if you put 52 books in your psyche in the next year? And then we have another conversation about money. Will you think that you're gonna be more knowledgeable, maybe have some results, maybe have some inspiration in that area? But, oh yeah, of course. Well,
Yeah.
do that. Do that
Yeah.
for a year, and then when you know something about the subject, then see what you're gonna do and what the direction is.
Mm.
You know.
That's incredible. Did you ever read David Hawkins' Power versus Force?
I have another book from him, or is it Powers versus Force? I have the audiobook.
He talks about the scale of consciousness.
Yes.
So,
yeah. I know about that.
I think in his book, he had said humanity had gotten up to 300. But we had just gotten, I think, to the place where we were all just desire, but that you need courage to actually start to ascend the lower levels of consciousness. If I was to ask you, what do you think your output is? Are you trying with your output to raise humanity's consciousness?
Well, maybe in a way I am. I'm not doing things on purpose. I'm not saying there's something wrong with the world and this is me trying to raise consciousness. I'm more into doing my own thing and then sharing what I'm doing with people. That's pretty much what I'm focused on.
Yeah. And do you find that for yourself, you vacillate, like you go up and down on these levels of consciousness, or are you steady in being able to feel courageous most of the time and ascend?
Oh, absolutely. I do fluctuate, and even when I'm traveling, I can just see how my energy fluctuates. Yeah. But what I think I do have are tools. I think if I'm in an environment where I'm feeling it's not healthy for me, I can pick it up and I can make a change. If I feel that, hey, I'm not feeling very courageous right now, but I do need to make something that requires some courage, well, I can make a ritual for me to get more courageous. I think we all have courage, we all have ambition, we all have all of these powers, this mental muscle, emotional muscles inside of us. It's just a matter of how do we develop them, And I think the most amazing type of courage that we all should give ourselves a hand for is a more of a stoic type of a courage where every day, despite all the influences and everyone telling us how to live our life, if we choose to do something different, if we choose to do something for us, if we choose it maybe to read a book that teaches me something about myself, if I choose to do that, then I should give myself a pat on the back, because that's a courage that's invisible. People don't see that type of courage. People are more into, courage means being a superhero and doing something once in front of everyone, and that means a person's courageous. That's not courage. That's just an impulse that you can, master in a second. But the great things in life that we want to have and achieve for our families and for ourselves, they take that little daily courage, maybe that ritual of working on something 1 hour a day, when no one claps for you, when no one sees you, when most people will never even understand what you went through. Because when you reach a certain point and you have results, people look at you and say, yeah, you always had that talent, you always had that thing. You're a lucky guy. You're such a lucky guy. Wow, you get to do this. But yeah, I'm a lucky guy, but maybe I read 300 books and maybe I sacrificed so much. Maybe I went through some, struggles that most people will never understand, because it's just hard to understand.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I have really enjoyed talking to you, and 1 hour has gone too quickly, but I will continue to follow you, and thank you so much for being an ideologue on this channel.
Hey, my pleasure, and congratulations for everything you're doing, Safia. You're doing amazing work.
Thank you so much. Honestly, it started out with just a little dream, I always worked for other people, and then I thought, you know what, I'm gonna set up my own platform. And I'm so thankful that everyone I've worked with in the past and everyone who's new have just been so supportive. I'm so grateful.
Well, absolutely. Well, I smile, and I'm looking forward to see some of your future podcast episodes. Keep me up to date, and we'll share this one on the platforms as well.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you,
Anything you have
Tiberius the
along
Great. I'm calling you Tiberius the Great from now on.
Oh, I'm humbled. Anything you have from now on that's like related to manifesting and to what we have on the pages, just let me know. We'll do some shout outs.
Oh, I would love that. Thank you, Tiberius.
Thank you. Thank you so
Connect
much.
soon.
Yes, for sure.